Hi, I'm known as the Utah Defender, and I want to talk about the Chase Allan murder. I can't call it a killing because it is a cold-blooded murder. And that is my interpretation of what happened. But the reason for this video is I'd like to be able to talk and show you the pictures of what happened where the chief had the news media come in and explain to them the sequence of events. But I would like you to go and find the most unedited copy of the video that you can. And then listen to these points that I want to bring up, which the news media did not bring up. My problem is the news media at all different levels, local and national, have tried to overemphasize that the son was a sovereign citizen and that the mother was. And they show a video of the mother being pulled over a year ago. And then they show the son being pulled over. They also show where they're in court and the son gets upset of how the judge was treating his mother. They take him out of the court, and unbeknown to you, which no one has said, because they're not going to report this because the news media are the bootlickers of the police department. And you have to know that they carry their water for the police. In other words, they do their bidding, because if they do not, police organizations will not allow them to come in when they have a hot story and get the news first. They'll give it to their competitors, they'll single them out, and they won't get the news story because they're not doing what the police department wants. So I really want you to realize that the way the news has been reported to you is all one-sided. It doesn't take in consideration Chase or his mother or the family. And how dare they use the mother's arrest and her court appearance to try to explain this murder. And that's what it is. It's a cold-blooded murder. It was premeditated and calculated. You know, one thing that wasn't brought out is in 4 minutes from the time that that police officer got out of his car, walked up to the window of Chase, knocked on it, he was dead in 4 minutes. Do you see anybody in the news media talking about that? Did you take the time to look at the sequence of events, the times of events? And, you know, Chase said, "I don't answer questions." And he was very cordial. Through the whole thing, you never hear anybody emphasize the fact that this young man was very cordial. And he told the police officer, "I do not answer questions." For you fools out there who think that you have to obey, and I love that because I've been protesting against the news medias and in certain locations within Farmington, and people are yelling, "Obey." We're not dogs. They come up to you and they say, "Obey my commands." That's what you say to a dog. I'm a human being. I fought for this country for 20 years, and I'm going to be damned if I have a police officer try to tell me to obey anything, period. I'll be cordial with him, and I'll respect him. But when he uses words like that, it's not going to happen. So this young man said, "I don't answer any questions." Are you who are ignorant realize that under the Fifth Amendment, we're given the right not to self-incriminate ourselves? We don't have to say anything to a police officer, period. But because you're ignorant and you yell to us that we're fools and everything else, and give us the finger and yell obscenities at us because we're protesting, evidently you went to sleep during your American Constitution class. Generally, it was in 8th grade. Additionally, People complain about him rolling his window down 3 inches. Let me tell you something. You don't have to even roll your window down to police officers. There's no law that says you can't. I've even talked to law enforcement officers who have told me there is no law that says you have to roll your windows down when they come up to your car. If you know for a fact that you have a invalid driver's license because it's expired, or that you don't have insurance, do you realize that you don't have to answer the questions of the police officer? And I'm not trying to give legal advice here. I'm telling you what I've read and what I understand from my own viewpoint. And that is, you're self-incriminating yourself if you give them an expired license. So you just tell them, I'm not going to give you those. When they arrest you, when they book you, then they can have the evidence. But generally the police already know if you have a driver's license. They already know that you have insurance on your car and your car is registered. But we do this mundane thing for the purpose of putting us in jail. When cops come up to our car, they're trained on 2 different paths to take. Either you got drugs, or you're going DUI, or there's a third, you have weapons in your car. That's why they ask you, where are you coming from? Where are you going? It's none of their damn business. They're asking you those questions because they're trying to let you self-incriminate yourself. So that's why someone would say, I don't answer questions. And you need to know that. You don't have to answer any question to a police officer. You don't even have to be cordial to the police officer. Let them write their ticket, which should not take more than 20 minutes. And I'm pretty sure the Supreme Court already ruled on that. And take your ticket and then go fight them in court. Because I'm going to tell you a little secret. 50% of the time, these police officers never show up when they write your ticket. And because you go to court and they don't show up, you automatically win your case. So they wasted your time for no reason at all. When you listen to Chase talk to the police officer and try to explain to him why he's not trying to identify himself, why he doesn't need a license plate, there are laws that are called UCCs, and that's what he was quoting. And the Supreme Court has ruled that we have our God-given right to travel. So he wasn't driving commercially. Until someone can prove me different, there is written that license and license plates on cars were established for those people who were doing commerce. That you're not the fact that you were driving to work, but that you were driving a vehicle that was earning money in the pursuit of driving that vehicle. And that's why they came out with driver's license and license plates. And so we've been charged all this time since 1930 that we need license plates and we need driver's license, when really traveling is a right from God. And the way I understand it is that Congress can't take away your rights. So how do they consider traveling against the law, that you need a license plate on your car and driver's license? So I'm putting that out there because that's what I've understood is the law and what Chase understood is the law. One of the main things in here, there's 2 main points that you have to understand while you're watching the video, besides the fact that it took him 4 minutes to murder him. When he's questioning him, he said, oh, listen, but this cop, whoever in the hell he is, never listened to him. He talked over him. He never let him finish one sentence. And the young man, I went to his funeral and I listened to person after person after person who stated that this young man would help people. He would go out of his way. And he was really a good person. He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't a bad person. And he would help everybody that would need help without question. And I went to the funeral, so I know this for a fact. The sad thing was, the part that really bothers me when they show all these body cams Why didn't they show the body cam of the sergeant that leaned into the car? And if that kid would have had a gun out, I guarantee you the sergeant would have never, ever, ever came out of that car yelling gun, 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 because he would have been in a struggle to take that gun out of the hand of the young man or keep it pointed away while the other officers broke windows and got in the car. But you didn't see that. That, I really, truly believe what he did is reach across to undo the belt buckle, and he saw the handle of a gun in a gun holster, and that's why he yelled gun, gun, gun. That is totally irresponsible, because he should know as a police officer, and I believe it was a sergeant, by yelling gun, 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 he's giving his other officers the right, as he sees it, or the way they're trained, to kill, murder this young man. When in fact, what the news media never wants to bring out, this young man never, ever, ever pointed a gun at anybody. When you look at the staged video where the gun is from the videos, you'll see that it was pulled out. And we've learned that when Chase would go into the post office, he was told at one time, please don't bring your gun in here. I wondered if the police got a report from one of the postal workers or a civilian, a citizen, that complained that Chase had brought a gun into the post office, because that would have alerted them to know that he carried a gun with him. And it would give them good reason that they could hem him up and possibly put him in the situation where they took his life on March 1st. So when you look at the gun that's laying on the floorboard, it's not laying on the floorboard, it's propped up against the hump of the transmission in the front of the car, and it looks like it was pulled out. I believe that law enforcement, those people that were at the scene, tampered with evidence and moved the gun out to show that he had a gun. These are things you have to think about. These are questions that the news media never touched upon. That gun would not be in a nice, neat position up against the wheel well as it shows. That gun would probably have been on the other side of the seat or someplace other in the lap or on the floorboard of the vehicle. But no one ever mentions that. They just show a picture, oh, he had a gun. That puts you in your image that he pointed a gun. No, he never pointed the gun at anybody, and they can't prove it. But why did they not show the body cam footage of the sergeant that leaned in? Because we would get to see where the gun was if he saw the gun. Or was there a gun? Did he really see a gun? See, these are all the questionable things that a reasonable person would ask themselves. You don't have a traffic stop where within, I think it's 30 seconds, that he asked for backup. That's another reason that no one talked about, the media. They don't want to talk about it because they're in cahoots with the police departments. They don't want to ask you that or tell you that. 5 officers show up, I think within 2.5 minutes, 5 officers. If you watch, like I do on YouTube, cop watchers and First Amendment auditors, that is not a reality. It just doesn't happen that fast. That's another reason why I believe it was a premeditated murder. You don't get that many cops on scene that fast. I'm sorry. I don't care if the police department was down the street. I think in conjunction with them knowing he had a gun, that they purposely had been watching the family, intimidating them, and following him through the streets of Farmington. And he conveniently came up behind him because in his conversation with Chase as he's sitting there, he tells him in a very rehearsed manner, this is all going to be on you. This is 100% on you. It could go this way or that way, but it's all on you. No, it's not all on him. Just like Here's the Deal said in his video, he never asked for the police to come up there. And this was for a license plate and for a driver's license. Why should you die because you don't give your license, you don't talk about your license plate or driver's license? This is the problem with the training in Utah with our police officers going through whatever academy they go through. Because you don't have to answer their questions. And you don't have to die because you didn't give them the information they wanted. And he did not present himself in a hostile manner. Again, no one talks about his demeanor, which was very calm, very articulate, and very professional. But the cop has to say, this is going to go, this is all on you. This is going to go whatever way you want to go. To me, that was rehearsed. That was part of the premeditation to murder him and taking him out of his vehicle. Here's another thing you need to know. Under Pennsylvania versus Sims, they can pull you out of your car. The Supreme Court already ruled that. But they have to have probable cause that their life is in danger. A reasonable person would not conclude from watching that when they wanted to take him out of the car that in any way he was being hostile or threatening them. In fact, it was the other way around. Would you have gotten out of the car as a reasonable person with 5 police officers that show up within like 2.5 minutes of the time that he asked for backup or his arrival on the scene? And then you find this young man dead in 4 minutes? Does that sound reasonable to you? Does that sound logical? And the other thing that no one wants to mention in the news media is the mother took out a federal lawsuit against her civil rights against the chief of police and the Farmington police, and I think maybe probably Farmington, the city of Farmington itself. And so they got butthurt and they targeted this family. It's patently obvious to me they targeted this family. And the 4 networks within Salt Lake City, and I have to give NBC credit because NBC was the only one that didn't keep harping on the mother's past or the court case that took on, because what they're doing is they're carrying water for the police department of Farmington, trying to use whatever they can find on the mother that she's at fault for his murder. I've heard this from many citizens. How dare they? How dare they back the police that murdered a young man in 4 minutes? Why watch them? We already know they're woke. We already know that they lie, that they only tell half the story. And this is a great example of it when I'm telling you now. You have to know why the news media will kiss the butt of the police and report everything the way they say. And when you listen to them, they always say, the police said. That's not investigative reporting. That's just taking everything from what they say and reporting it the way the police want. They didn't do an investigation on this. So you as people out there have to know that I want to share this with you. If you're a citizen in a car and the police come up and you're a passenger in the car and the other person's being cited for an infraction, and that police officer asks you to roll the window down, you don't have to roll the window down. But you're going to suffer the consequences because they have no legal right whatsoever. There is no probable cause. They're using the fact that they have a badge and gun to make you roll that down. You're taught, you're brainwashed in school that the police are heroes. They're not heroes. These guys are not heroes. These guys are just as bad as any murderer that's in prison right now. What terrible human beings these 5 officers are. They had a field day. Oh boy, we get to use our guns. We get to murder somebody. Isn't this fun? Where was the gun? Did any of these, all those officers are guilty because they never saw a gun. They're just hearing gun, gun, gun. Oh, let's open up. Do you know, as a military, in the military for 20 years, we were taught, even in combat, you're responsible for every bullet that comes out the barrel of your gun. And police officers should be taught the same thing. I don't think they are. And the one thing that is disturbing is that they don't know your civil rights. All they're taught is to come up to your car and try to get into your car. And by you saying, no, officer, I'm not going to roll my window down and I'm not going to self-incriminate myself. They get butthurt and then they go, oh, I smell marijuana. The old marijuana trick. They want to, anything they can see in plain view, they can use probable cause, or now they're smelling it. That's why you don't want to roll your windows down on both sides of your car, because then the cross ventilation, if you are smoking marijuana, they're going to know it. And I don't condone smoking marijuana, but if that's your thing, that's you, that's your life. You're a citizen. You should be able to do what you want and pay the consequence for that, as these officers should pay the consequence for murder. People say, oh, why don't you say that they killed him? No, that was murder. That's why I'm so upset about all this. Everything that I see with my eyes that I read tells me that this was a premeditated murder. And you as citizens have got to realize that when the police come up to your vehicle and they want your license, registration, and proof of insurance, you don't have to roll your window all the way down. You can roll it down 3 inches, but they're going to get butthurt. And you just ask them, hey, what law is that I have to roll this down? So what you do is you take your paperwork and you put it through the thing, or you can hold it up to the bottom of their window, and they'll go ballistic on you when you do that. They're gonna find a way to break your window and pull you out of the car. So for all of you, it's probably best that you roll your window down halfway, tell them that's all the farther I'm going to do it, and then give them the papers, let them write their ticket. Don't argue with them. Don't say anything to them. Say, under the Fifth Amendment, I'm going to not say anything to you. And I don't answer questions. And they will try to find, they're taught how to get into your car. That's what they teach the police. They're not good guys. Why can't the police, the first time they pulled you over as a citizen, you've never seen this police officer say, I've never met you before. The police officer should say, I've never met you before. You were speeding. And in the goodness to create good relationships between you and me, my name is Bannon. My badge number is 892. And I'm pulling you over because you were speeding 10 miles over the speed limit. But no, they have to write you a damn ticket every time. It's like a cash cow. We're cash cows to them. Just like the driver's license and the license plate on your car. But remember, the Supreme Court says you have a God-given right to travel freely. And that licenses were designed for commercial purposes. And in many of the states, it states that. But people never question that, just like you don't question a police officer. Yes, sir. No, sir. So you have to know that the police were guilty of a murder. They never saw a gun. This young man never pointed a gun at anybody. And I know that because that police officer would have never came out of that car if that gun was out. All he saw probably was the holster, and maybe he didn't even see the gun. The police probably said, well, he's got a holster on, there must be a gun. And then they find it in between the seat and the console where he would put it, and then slid it out to show that he had a gun in a very static display of the gun. So I know that I'm not being professional like a news reporter, but I want you to listen and listen to this video again. Because we as citizens are being under attack by our police department and our law enforcement agencies throughout the country. If you don't think so, why do they have military vehicles in their police departments? Why do they look like they're going to war with us, the way they have their bulletproof vests? You know, here's the thing that cracks me up. Police go, I'm in fear for my life. They have a vest on. They have handcuffs. They have spray, Most of them, almost all of them, have a 3-inch knife to cut seatbelts with in case there's a fire. They have a gun and they have a taser. What the hell are they afraid of? And it's more important that they get to go home at the end of the day than you. They don't care about you. If you don't believe me, watch how they take the body of Chase out of the vehicle. And the one officer's more concerned about his magazine and his gun jamming up than he is about this poor guy that's laying there dying before him. One other thing that we need to talk about is why were the body cams taken off after 6 minutes? Well, I heard the chief, who I said had moral courage by coming out and talking to me and shaking my hand, but he's a liar. And I would say that to his face. And if you hear this, you're a liar. What happened is he said, I wrote the protocol for turning off the body cams. Do you want to know why? Because basically what he admitted is that they are tampering with evidence. After a shooting, your emotions are high and you talk and your friends will talk back and forth and you'll talk to each other. Those cameras could have captured things like, why did we pull our guns out? Why did we shoot? What did you really do? Why were they turned off for six minutes, after 6 minutes, and then told again at 24 minutes? You got to think about that. That is tampering with evidence. And they're guilty of it. And they're guilty of the fact that nobody ever pointed a gun, and this kid was cooperative from the get-go. But that's why when I look at everything that I've told you, this was a premeditated murder, and they were butthurt because the mother took out a federal lawsuit, and the news media are crap. They reported nothing that was essential but to build a case against the mother and son. You have to have all the facts. None of this was talked about in any other of the videos that you've watched. I'm bringing it to your attention. You don't drive into a post office and 4 minutes later you're pulled out of your car and you're dead because you didn't give them a driver's license and a license plate. They were angry with the family. They were angry with this young man because he was articulate. He knew what he said. And what really blows my mind and really makes me angry is the dumb ass murderer that pulled him over. The chicken shit bastard that pulled him over at the beginning by saying, this is all going to go, it's going to all go the way you want it to go, this way or that way. I'm not using the exact words, but that's what he said. That was rehearsed. You can listen to it. And then when he goes across the street to this other lady to call his wife, does he seem concerned that he just murdered somebody? Hell no. And I counted 12 police officers that were on scene at that point. And the chief sure got down there quick, didn't he? Because he probably knew that they were going to do this to this kid. You know, we need to really grammar request all their cell phones of these police officers because I think they communicated on their cell phones. We're not going to find anything from dispatch. Their personal cell phones need to be grammar requested, but they're going to be gone. They're going to erase it. No, everything that I've told you tells me this was a murder, and it wasn't mentioned in any other videos. And it's all evidence. You know, the two things that show you that this wasn't a murder, or three things. You don't kill somebody. This kid was not in any way a threat. He was cordial, articulate. He's a nice kid. And then we have a dumbass sergeant, I think it was a sergeant, that goes gun, gun, gun. Is that policy? He never pointed the gun at anybody. There was no struggle for a gun, so he must have not had it out. Because when he went over to reach the seatbelt, I'm sure that he saw the holster, and predicated upon that, he'd assumed that the kid had a gun. And all the crap about he took his hand from the right hand, the cell phone, to the left, that's bogus bull crap too. Why? Because he was trying to get his seatbelt done. and you would roll to your side and try to hit the detent on the seatbelt release to release the seatbelt. So no one can tell me that this was not a premeditated murder. You're not going to get that from the news, because they have to, if they can't kiss the ass of the police department, they're not going to get the story from them. All their competitors will first, and they won't get as many views, and then their revenue from commercials will go down. That's what this is about. That's why they don't want to tell you the whole story. And this is the other part of the story, like Paul Harvey says, who used to say, and for you that don't know, he was a very popular news person. He generally came on at noontime across the United States in your time zone and say, now you know the rest of the story. I have no empathy. I have no sympathy for the chief of Farmington or any of the officers that were involved in this shooting. They're all damn guilty. The other thing is, I would call what they did excessive force. They had to fire at least 40 rounds out of their weapons. Generally, they have Beretta, and it's a 9mm. You can put a round inside the chamber. You have 9 shots to go. And I think if there was 5 officers, that must be 40 rounds, because let me tell you, when you're firing, good people with weapons count the rounds as they're going out. I don't think these guys knew how to count rounds, and I think they just kept firing until everything was gone. That's excessive force. They didn't try to preserve life. And here's the big thing about everything I want you to think about. Next time you get pulled over, they send a good message to you, the viewer, the citizen, that they're going to kill you too. This is not Nazi Germany 1934 at the brown shirts with Hitler. Let me tell you how personal that is, because that's what our police department's turning into. Nazi Germany brown shirts, 1934. They're not with us, they're against us. The police agencies in Utah are our enemy of the people. And I take it very personal, because I had 2 great-grandparents that were indirectly murdered by Stalin in Russia. And that's where our country's going unless you start standing up for your rights. So if you watch this video, look for us at Farmington, protesting, and join us. I feel bad. I feel bad for the mother. I feel bad for the father. And it was so heart-wrenching to hear the grandfather at the funeral. You police officers that shot at this young man didn't have reasonable cause to murder him. You didn't preserve life. You didn't protect life. You are becoming the enemies. And maybe at this point, more people will pick up a camera, and more people will, every shooting that the police have, will show up and start protesting. I'm sorry for my dog. She always does this because she wants attention. But I hope you'll listen to what I said and know that you have rights and look into them. Thank you for your time, and God bless you.